Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Weller and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons. Now today is all about a book review. This is the Spelljammer adventure Light of Xaryxis. I think that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. It's a fictional name, so therefore a bit hard to figure out if I've got it right. The first thing I want to say about this book before I move on and start going into the details and actually showing you everything in the book. I'm not going to not show you any of the pages. I'm going to show you everything. This is intended to be a book review, and it's going to be from my perspective, and it's based on the Spelljammer Adventures in Space box set, but I'm specifically honing in on the adventure Light of Xaryxis for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. In my opinion, the standard front cover illustration is very alien and it's compelling. I think it's a great art piece. I don't actually like the alternative cover. I think that's actually kind of a bit dull in my opinion. For those of you who prefer the alternative, I'm nothing against you. Okay, this is not a personal attack on you or anything like that. But for me, it doesn't really do what it needs to do. Okay, I like my stuff to be exciting and I want an illustration that actually tells me something. I'm trying to get something of the idea of what I'm going to be expecting. And this doesn't do it for me. What I will say about this book ultimately is I would say the contents page is generally adequate without having to require an index, although I will say an index for the non-player characters would have been helpful. I know it's still a short book, it shouldn't be that hard to find things, but the NPCs are of course going to be scattered throughout the book, and it would be nice to be able to find them really quickly. And if you're not completely familiar with the book, then you wouldn't be able to do this. Now, Chris Perkins has attempted to do something that Wizards of the Coast has never done in an adventure ever before. Now, what they've tried to do is create a television series feel and end on a tension point. Now, they've had some success, I think, with this book, but not completely. The thing with writing a book like this, like if you are to actually write a book like this, and it's a pre-made adventure for Spelljammer, that's a difficult task. I'm not actually convinced it can be done successfully in 64 pages. In fact, even if they had more pages, I'm still not convinced it can be done successfully, just because of the nature of the beast. It's space. You can go anywhere. I've run into this problem before with Star Wars and running my own Spelljammer campaign. So I don't actually think that it's necessarily going to be possible to write an adventure and satisfy everybody or achieve what you need to achieve. And it was clear when I was looking at the interview with Chris Perkins that he saw the problem himself. And it's like, what are you supposed to do with this? Now there's information here, very brief, on character advancement, character creation, the structure of the book and how it's laid out. That's all there, of course, okay? The interior artwork, I would say it's a little disappointing with a mixture of presentation. Like you get cartoon characters here, you get some unfinished conceptual drawings at times or paintings, you get a few excellent monster pictures, and you get some landscapes of different astral locations which are actually great. I really enjoyed some of these. They were fantastic. I'd also say that this adventure is trying to do something that most of the adventures for Wizards of the Coast don't normally do, which is it doesn't start at level 1, okay? This adventure starts at character level 5 and it's going to finish about level 9, possibly 10, depending on whether you're using experience points. But this whole adventure is structured for milestones. In my opinion, this was a smart choice. If you're going to do multiverse travel, you probably don't want to start at level 1. It's probably a bad idea. So level 5, good idea. There are 12 chapters that apparently will take between 2 and 3 hours to run each chapter. And this is, I think, just a rough guide. I find that the prospect of being able to run these chapters, the further I go on, in 2 or 3 hours to be unlikely. I just don't think that's going to be possible. The overall adventure involves stopping the astral elves draining all the energy from other worlds to keep their dying star alive. This is quite familiar to me. I've heard this story before. And if you aren't familiar with it, we'll talk about it some other time maybe. The character's quest goal, to save their world from a parasitic crystal seed, is a smart idea to gain the player character's motivation. Very important with an adventure where you can go anywhere, that you can get everybody on the same page. So that motivation's a great idea. This adventure is actually very heavily event or plot driven. Like if you had to say differentiate between an event-based adventure and a location-based adventure, this leans heavily into event and plot driven, making the adventure on very, very tight rails. A lot of effort has gone into designing this adventure to give the players the illusion of choice and actual choices with consequences. So there's actually a mixture going on here. It's not just one way for anybody who thought, okay, it's just going to give them the illusion of choice. There are actual true choices taking place as well. As a result of that, safety nets have been built into this adventure. Should the player characters lose their way and not be sure what to do, or fail at a particular part of the adventure or task, or they don't follow the plot. So if they don't follow the plot, then there's a way of pushing them back onto the track and moving them forward. Now, this is a good sign of design. If you have an adventure that can cover all of the potential consequences of things that players may or may not do, and you pretty much cover, really you've got 3 or 4 things you need to contend with, right? Success, failure, and if they don't follow your hook. And so if you can cover those things, you've done pretty well. And this adventure really does a pretty good job of trying to do that. The adventure attempts to have a cliffhanger at the end of each leg of the story, which generally presents a fake threat. It's not a true threat. I would say it's definitely a fake threat of some kind. The length of this adventure is short, and I'm fine with it being a short adventure. I applaud Wizards of the Coast for writing a shorter adventure story rather than some of the longer stuff we've had, because it makes it easier to run. I've been asking for this. I think a lot of people have been asking for shorter stuff, so they've done that. So that's great. This is inspired, or should I say plagiarized, from the old Flash Gordon movie in many respects, down to key locations within the adventure or story, it being in a strange space reality, involving saving the planet from destruction, and duplicating characters. Like there are characters here that are duplications from that movie, and unfortunately copying sections of dialogue directly from the movie and inserting them into the adventure. I mean, I don't know how they didn't wind up getting into trouble for this, but they probably should. What you do find is that aspects of the old science fiction movies have been incorporated into the story. It's not just Flash Gordon. I would say we're getting aspects of Thor Ragnarok. I could see elements there. I could even see aspects that relate to the story Star Trek, particularly Star Trek The Wrath of Khan. Treasure Planet, you definitely get that feeling. There's a very strong the black hole, the old Disney movie feel to this. Particularly near the end, you notice that they're definitely coming out. And the Addams Family, kind of, there's definitely a vibe to that. And then Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, there's all those aspects kind of drawn into this adventure. Now, if that sounds like something you would enjoy, good. One of my greatest concerns is this adventure is written like a short story or a novel or a short novel, rather than a Dungeon Master tool. So it seems like it has been specifically designed to read like a novel of some kind. Now that seems to be a product of Wizards of the Coast's marketing team, assuming that a lot of people never actually run adventure books and they simply read them like a story, which may well be the case. But does that necessarily mean that you get what you need rather than entertaining somebody with a fun story. If you're going to do that, just go write a story. Okay, we've said this before, everybody has. The ticking clock to save the player character's world doesn't actually create tension. It's one of the things, unless I haven't actually run this adventure, so I don't know for sure, but I don't believe it creates tension because it's so vague and it has no defined system in place. So because it's so vague, really the time frame is whatever we need the time frame to be to allow the players to do what they want to do. Now that's got some good aspects to it and some bad aspects to it. Not all of the answers are in this adventure. If that was even possible. So if you were looking for answers as a dungeon master, or if a player has a question, if you have questions, you're not going to get all the answers from this book. Would that be possible? I don't think it probably is, but you can't get everything from here. What happened to the seeds and the giant crystals and the giant crystal vines that grow in the world's core? I mean, this is like a catastrophic event that damages the planet, and yet for some reason we're assuming that once they complete this, that won't be an issue anymore. There aren't a lot of maps in the adventure, but the ones provided are fine for a dungeon master playing in person. But if you're on a virtual tabletop, these maps won't be suitable for you because they won't look very good, unfortunately. This adventure doesn't allow a player to explore the astral sea or wild space, which makes it inadequate for a general Dungeons & Dragons community who expect that kind of experience. So if you were expecting to be able to go pretty much wherever you like and do whatever you wanted to in a Spelljammer campaign, okay, or Spelljammer adventure, and this is a Spelljammer adventure, you're going to be sadly disappointed, unfortunately. Some of the adventure can be chop-shopped for parts. You could cut it up into pieces and then include it into your homebrew campaign if you wanted to. Not all of it is you can't chop everything up, unfortunately, but there is a lot of it that can be chopped up. This adventure initially appears to be suitable for a beginner dungeon master till you get halfway through the story. And as a result of just so many moving parts, it becomes a bit of a mess. So at that point, it really is going to be difficult to run, even for a intermediate to experienced dungeon master, just because there's so many moving parts and so many potential outcomes or consequences to the player's character's actions or what the NPCs will actually do. The adventure book is expensive for the quality of the tool that you are provided with, in my opinion. But we are dealing with a book that has a hardcover. It has significantly stronger pages. The page thickness is much greater. A lot of the pages are actually gloss, and you see there's no water damage. There is nothing here that indicates that this book is a poor product in terms of the construction of the book. The book, in terms of construction, is actually extremely good. It's just about whether the tools provided are going to be suitable for you. I think overall, for me, this is going to suit people who are happy to run through a very story-driven, fixed plot adventure. And for those of you who are got groups or wanted to have more of a sandbox feel, you will not like this book, and you will have to cut it up into pieces. You can probably cut about half this book up into pieces, maybe a little bit less, and use it in your own campaign and do your own thing. So it's going to be a very difficult situation. I find this combined with the other two books as part of the set, I still am not convinced that this is a particularly good product. But I am also unsure as to what a Spelljammer campaign with an adventure book in it is supposed to look like, because I've never seen one that was done right anyway. So I don't know what else to say about this thing. All I want to say is, if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, provide that in the comments section. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.